look out. Here come former SportsCenter anchor Bob Stevens, esteemed basketball coach Rich Basirico, and Hall of Fame sports writer Curry Kirkpatrick. And someone's going under the bus.
For once, it's not Curry going under the bus. After a couple of weeks away, he has come out from under the bus. And yes, the Prodigal sportscaster returns, though he is still joining us from, as you can tell by his background, Hawaii. Welcome back, Curry.
Thank you. Aloha, as we say here in the islands. I'm only here for another week, but it seems like I've been here for years. It's so wonderful here.
Not a bad place.
Which island? You know, we don't want to give away your location because the fans would come streaming in.
Yeah, that's true. But I've missed you guys.
Which island are you on?
I'm in Maui. You know, I came here for the Maui Classic basketball tournament, and I kind of just stayed for a while. So
did the Carolina basketball team, right?
Yeah. Well, no comment on that. Well, I guess we're going to comment on them later.
We probably will. We're going to get to Carolina football, which is really the story there this past week. We'll get there in a moment. But first, I'm sure everybody wants us to say something about the college football playoffs. They are all set. I think it's going to be a lot of fun when it starts up a week from Saturday, or Friday night actually with the Indiana game. But anybody need to go under the bus here?
What do you guys think of what do you guys think of the system and how they were chosen and so forth and so on and seeded, etc.? Rich, what do you think?
I think they should seed all the teams. I don't necessarily like, those 14 conferences getting, a bye. Like, I mean, Arizona State's good, but are they one of a team that should get a bye? I don't think so. Even Boise State's good too, but should they get a bye? I think they should seed the teams, get to 12 teams, and then seed them 1 through 12. Clemson, got in the back door by winning the tournament, the ACC championship. Of course, down the stretch they almost choked it out, but then they're seeded 12th, and then SMU's 11. How does that happen? They just beat SMU. Why is SMU ahead of them?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Well, they've got, the committee, I think, had a charge. I think they got, I don't think they got the 12 best teams necessarily. They did get the 12 most deserving, probably. The big controversy was Alabama going to get in. And I would say even now that Alabama on neutral fields would probably be favored against 9 of these teams. I really think so. I think only maybe Oregon, Texas, Georgia would be favored over Alabama. All the rest would be underdog against Alabama. But, they lost 3 games. They lost to Oklahoma in a terrible game. Didn't the Alabama AD claim that now, he's going to look into scheduling more out of conference games if that's what's going to get him in?
He did say that.
That's silly.
Come on.
Yeah, well, the whole idea behind playing what the Alabama AD says was a tougher schedule. Okay, you win those games, it's an advantage in the whole argument. But you got to win them. I mean, you got to not lose to Vanderbilt and Tennessee and Oklahoma.
Yeah, correct. And they didn't score a touchdown against Oklahoma, right?
No,
I think they got 3 points. That's the game that killed them. The game that also killed them was the championship game. I mean, if Clemson was absolutely blowing out SMU at halftime, and everybody, I read a couple of the committee people were saying right then that SMU doesn't deserve to get in, and then they have this great second half comeback when they lose on a 56-yard field goal at the gun, and they're automatically back in. I thought that was kind of cool. That the half got them in.
Yeah, good rally by them.
The only way Alabama gets you in is obviously if Clemson lost, they'd be in for sure. But if Clemson would have beaten SMU by 2 to 3 touchdowns or more, then maybe Alabama would finish above SMU. But
they were on the way to doing that. That's what I'm saying. And
but that's Clemson. We're going to rush 3 guys. They're going to rush 3 guys down the stretch and let the quarterback just pick them apart. I was surprised that SMU did not go for the 2-point conversion. they had been just
Yeah.
they success the whole fourth quarter, outplayed Clemson the whole second half. Actually,
Yeah.
had the momentum. Go 3 yards. Coaches don't trust in themselves. You got to have 4 or 5 plays that you know are going to work for you down on the 3 yard line. And I guess he didn't believe that they could do it.
Maybe
Well, unless
looking
you're
back,
unless
go
you're
ahead.
Dan Campbell, all the rest of them are
Nick
chicken, I
Campbell would have
guess.
done it. Yeah, he would have done it in a skinny minute.
Yeah, yeah.
He'd be on the 10-yard line, 4th and 10. He'd be doing it.
Well,
So
I thought there was some. Before we get into the, I know everybody in America wants to hear your guys' picks for what's going to happen. But before that, I thought there were, I thought there were a couple interesting, and significant, stuff at the end of this last week, at the end of the season. We know Texas Georgia was supposed to be, a real close game, which it was. But everybody knew there's no way Texas was going to win when they barred Bevo from being in the building. I mean,
Yeah.
can you remember when I think it was
That's
the
bad.
Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago? Bevo went after Uga, and they had to,
That's right.
he knocked down some fences, and poor Uga was standing around, didn't know what was happening. So they barred poor Bevo from the stadium this time.
They'll Bevo will get his revenge this week when they host Clemson. Yeah, or next week.
I also thought it was neat in the ACC tournament championship presentation. The commissioner, Jim Phillips, was on the stage with all the Clemson players and coaches, and Molly McGrath is interviewing them all. And you could see Phillips was there just panting to get on the mic so he could politicize for 2 teams, for SMU getting in, which they eventually did anyway. But they never gave him the mic, and they signed off, and he was like a little puppy dog. I think, they signed off. He went up to Molly McGrath and started chewing around. I would have loved to hear that, saying, why you didn't get me on. It was great.
That would have been good. That would have been good. Looking back at it, maybe SMU did the right thing in not going for 2, because had they gone for 2 and made it, they might probably be playing Alabama this week. But they missed it. They still got in, and they go to Penn State instead, and they could win at Penn State. Who's the favorite? Who do you think's got the best chance for an upset next week? Or do you want to wait a week and talk about it then?
Well, I wish, the Penn State coach who we've sent under the bus several times this season, Ben Franklin, what's his name? James Franklin, he coaches like Ben Franklin. But at the end, he had a great presser at the end of the game. They had the Oregon band and cheerleaders were right outside, apparently, the press room. I mean, they were screaming, yelling, playing a band. And Franklin had to raise his voice in the question and answer in the press. And finally he said, look, I understand the celebration, and he looked at the press guys and he said, this thing is a JV setup. He called them JV because of all the noise. It occurred to me that he's been called a JV himself probably for a lot of years at Penn State, because he's never met a big game he hadn't choked in. Yes. I think that'd be a great upset. I would love to see SMU and the other Southern team, Tennessee, play these games, in nice weather. But now, Tennessee, now they have to go into ice station zebra conditions. Tennessee's playing in Columbus at night. What's it going to be there, 10 below? And then poor SMU has to go to Penn State, go to Nippy Valley, what do they call it? Happy Valley. It's really Freezy Valley in this setup. But I would love to see both those upsets, you guys.
I think Tennessee can upset Ohio State.
Yeah.
They're playing well. Ohio State's not after losing to Michigan. They're so down and out. If Ohio State loses again, trust me when I say this, their coach would jump off a bridge.
Well, I'll tell you something. I think if SMU beats Penn State and if Tennessee beats Ohio State at their home fields, Franklin, they're going to run him out of town before, there's a time for the presser. And in Ohio State, Ryan Day, if he loses Tennessee at home, it's a long day's journey into joblessness for him. I believe you're right. I think they're both going to be fired.
You think?
So I guess that makes the move by North Carolina this week to try to lock up Bill Belichick even more brilliant, because now Penn State and Ohio State wouldn't be able to go get him. Curry, what's going on at your alma mater?
Well, when this thing was first announced, I couldn't believe it. I would have said there is no way possible Bill Belichick's going to coach, number one, in college, and number two, at North Carolina, because especially at North Carolina, there's been such a, they bundled the Mac Brown firing terribly. There's a real conflict between the Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director Cunningham at UNC, and the board of trustees. And they don't like each other, and they don't like the way Cunningham does stuff, especially with the football program. And apparently I read where one of the trustees, or a couple of them, already offered the job to Belichick while they were in negotiations. I mean, I can't believe Belichick wants to deal with NIL and the portal and all that stuff. I mean, can you guys think he would be wanting to do that?
No, not at all. I mean, he'd be the last guy would want to do that.
Yeah.
But he talked about, I'm sure you heard that one of the press conferences, he said this show will be a pipeline to the NFL for these players. A pipeline. Isn't it about winning and not about, okay, I'm going to get these guys ready for the NFL? What's the percentage of guys that go from college to the NFL? Like 1 or 2%? So if your whole philosophy is North Carolina is going to be a pipeline to the NFL, you're talking about 1 or 2% of your players. I would hope you would talk more about, we're going to have a winning program, we're going to compete for the national championship, those type of things. He's talking about more about it being an NFL kind of program, he said it'd be a professional program. Is that the guy that you want for that?
Well, as an alumnus, I've always been proud of our academic and integrity issues at North Carolina. But this is a step in the wrong direction. Obviously, as you say, Rich. I mean, this is all football, no academics. He's not even talking about it's, as you say, he's talking about a pipeline to the NFL, and apparently among his demands that his son Steve Belichick, who's a defensive coordinator at University of Washington, that his son will be the coach in waiting when he leaves. Have you heard? Oh yeah, that's the whole thing. Yeah. He's got a whole thing set up where Steve will be his assistant, and he'll be the coach in waiting. And also a bunch of his cronies from the old Patriots days are going to be his assistants. And this is in his package of demands. He wrote apparently a 400, this can't be right, but I read where he drew up a 400-page manifesto for what he would do to get North Carolina back on track. And apparently it's impressed the board of trustees. And you've read in the past day or so, they're talking about finalizing this deal, which to me is just unbelievable.
It doesn't make sense. I just can't see Belichick on the sidelines of college and all the things they're going through with the transfer portal and all that. So I think he thinks because he's Bill Belichick and these kids come to North Carolina, they'll never leave. They're going to leave.
I mean, also, can you imagine if you're the athletic director, the guy sitting across from you said, I want my son to be my successor. This is going to be in my package.
I would cut the cord right then and there.
Telling me that. Yeah.
The guy's never been a head coach.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say his son's never been a head coach, correct?
I'm sorry?
His son's never been a head coach.
Excuse me, just a second. That's something going on outside. I think they're cutting down some trees. Just a second.
Take care of that, and we'll go on. There, we get to see the aloha. That's very nice. You're right, though, Coach. And how many of these coach in waiting things? They've done it in a couple of other situations where there's been a coach in waiting, and they never work.
They
never even happen. Wasn't Oklahoma going to do that a few years back? It just never works.
But that's when the guy in waiting decides that the coach isn't going to die and he goes somewhere else. You know, they
Well,
did that
maybe.
with Syracuse. Syracuse basketball did that a few years ago. Remember the
Yeah,
guy?
there you go.
The guy was coaching Wayne. But this, you know, Belichick wants to coach apparently. But the thing that I don't understand, I thought he wanted to coach in the NFL and break Shula's record. I
Right.
don't. And he may be looking at this as a step to the NFL, and maybe it is. But you know, I just don't. Can I give you a little personal note from
Sure.
me out here in Maui?
Absolutely.
You know, as they say, they bungled the firing of Mac Brown, the administration. But as I was told, they gave Mac Brown the opportunity to resign. They said, "Look, it's going to be over. Could you please resign?" And he would have gotten a cushy job in the administration as the, you know, the head, one of the faces of football, but just not coach there. But instead, you know, on the Monday after his last game, he announced he was coming back. Well,
Right.
Bubba Cunningham and the young chancellor, whose name is Lee Roberts, were here in Maui. And so
We thought
he
they were
like
talking to
pressed their,
you.
he like, well, I'm going to get to that right in a second.
All right.
But so Mac Brown like pressed their hand. So Cunningham had to fire him right there in a phone call from Maui.
Wow.
And with obviously with the direction of the new chancellor, Lee Roberts. So on that exact day, I figured this out a couple days later, but I was waiting around beside the court at the Carolina basketball game. They played one of the late games in Maui at the tournament. And I know Bubba Cunningham really well, and he knows me, and et cetera, et cetera. And he came up and he introduced me. I had never met the chancellor. The chancellor was with him. And the chancellor's a young guy, as I say, Lee Roberts. By the way, he looks like he's about 15 years old. Lee Roberts is the son of Cokie Roberts, the famous television broadcaster.
Yeah.
And his father was Steve Roberts, who was a noted and admired writer for the New York Times. So
Okay.
anyway, he's got this journalism background, but he's not popular on the campus because he replaced a very popular chancellor who left to become president at Michigan State. But anyway, so I'm meeting Lee Roberts and Bubba Cunningham, and I'm talking to the chancellor and so forth. And the next day, I realized that Cunningham fired from on a phone call from Maui to Chapel Hill. He fired Mac Brown. And I was thinking, you know, this was the same day he had just introduced me. It must have been, you know, hours before this. And I wonder if Mac Brown, as I'm talking to Chancellor, I wonder if Bubba Cunningham was thinking, what's Kirkpatrick doing talking about? I mean, I wonder how much he knows. Of course, I knew nothing. He said, I wondered if he thought, what is he trying to, you know, it occurred to me that
You
there I
could
was
have
the
changed
same
all
day.
of this. You could have
That's
changed
right.
all of it.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, you could have said, no Belichick. Whatever you do, I don't care what you do to Mac Brown, because you'd thrown him under the bus anyway.
Exactly. I could have told Bubba, this is a mistake. This is a big problem. Don't do this. Yeah.
Who would you have wanted? Who do you still want? It hadn't happened yet.
Well, the guy at Tulane was the guy, apparently the college guy who signed up for a new contract at Tulane. And I would have liked the guy, Matt Campbell at Iowa State. I think he's done a great job there. He might have been a good
He also
fit.
said no. Yeah.
Yeah. He said no. Everybody said no. And here's Belichick. They apparently have a guy waiting, Steve Wilkes, former NFL coach who was an interim coach for the 49ers and the Panthers. And apparently he's waiting around. But, you know, who knows? I just think if this hiring is imminent, as they say it is, Rich and Bob, I think it's going to be a disaster. I think one of two things. He'll go to the NFL within a year and leave them in a lurch, you know, get a job opening somewhere, or just stick around and not know what he's doing. I mean, you know, I don't know. The guy's a 500 coach without Tom Brady. Okay.
That's right.
So, yeah.
You know the name
You know, the last famous coach to do this, pro coach to go back to college, is Bill Walsh, who went from the 49ers to Stanford. And he was like, in 3 years, he was just 500 at Stanford.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I really do think there's two different games to this thing.
How about
there's
the guy
two different.
Notre Dame from the Patriots, assistant coach? Who was his name? That went to Notre Dame.
What's that?
Bombed out.
The fat guy?
Yeah.
Charlie
Oh
Weiss,
yeah, Charlie Weiss. He's been everywhere. He also got a huge contract to coach Where did he coach, Bob, in the Southwest? Was he at Oklahoma or somewhere for a few years?
Kansas.
Charlie Weiss, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
right.
He ruined Kansas after
Yeah.
Mangino had made it really pretty good.
yeah,
Mark Mangino had
yeah.
been very successful.
Yeah, Mangino and Charlie Weiss were probably busy at Thanksgiving to take any other jobs, but at the
Curry,
Thanksgiving table.
what do you think about Jeff Saturday? I heard that name.
Well, Jeff Saturday just today came on and he said he thinks it's a done deal and he expressed the reasons why Belichick would go to Carolina and why he would be a success.
Wow.
And I love Jeff Saturday, but I think he's crazy. I just don't think it's going to work.
Maybe he's hoping Belichick would hire him to be his assistant.
Well, how about Saturday? How about Saturday's tenure as an NFL head coach at Indianapolis? That lasted about 5.5 minutes.
That did not go well.
Well, let's get back to these picks. I want to hear your picks
I want to wait a week.
Really.
We can do this next week.
Oh, you want to wait a week? Okay. Well,
since they don't play
so
till
they're
next
still,
weekend.
they're still going to
give
play.
us more time to watch film.
Yeah.
Watch it. We'll break down film. Let's do it.
Yeah. Coach can show us how to do that. Let's take a quick break because we're already 21 minutes in, and we'll talk a little NFL. We got some baseball to talk about as well. Lots of good stuff ahead as we throw some more people under the bus. All of it brought to you by Hudson's on the Docks on Hilton Head Island, hudsonsonthedocks.com. Back in a minute. Welcome back to Under the Bus. Bob Stevens along with Curry Kirkpatrick and Rich Basirico. Scott Boras, who we'd thrown under the bus a few times before, could not have gotten a better situation than to have Juan Soto being fought over by two rich New York teams. And he ends up getting $765 million. That's more than Curry made in any 15 years of his career. It was close, but 765 for 15 years. The Yankees only offered 760 and wanted an extra year. They wanted 16 years. They wanted to pay this guy when he was 42 a whole lot of money. So
I'm
anyway.
happy. I'm happy they didn't sign him for the Yankees anyway. I'm really happy. He's one player. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's a terrific player. What happens if he gets hurt? I mean, you kind of count on one guy to do all this, spend all that money. I have a great stat for everybody here. I'm going to read it because I want to make sure I get it right. The Pittsburgh Pirates total payroll for the last 10 years was $726 million. For the last 10 years, their total payroll. This guy's making 765. You got to be kidding me. Is there one payroll that's worth that? Come
Well,
on.
and the Yankees the next day, your boys just got Max Fried from Atlanta, who I think is a terrific pickup. I mean, he's Whitey Ford, this guy. I love Max Fried. I think he's really going to do great things for the Yankees.
He's the highest paid lefty since David Price. How did David Price work out? Not very well.
Yeah.
But here's the key for the Yankees picking him. Curry, you probably know this. He's 3 times Gold Glove as a pitcher.
Yeah.
Well, after what happened in the World Series, I guess they needed a Gold Glove on the mound, I guess.
They got one someplace now.
How many Gold Gloves is Soto going to win?
Zero.
I mean, this money, the money, of course, just bores me. But the $5 million difference because this guy Steve Cohen for the Mets. I mean, he has money growing out of trees. But the $5 million difference lends me to believe that there was something personal about Soto leaving. I can't believe. I'm not a big Yankee or a Mets guy, but the Yankees are the gold standard. And why he would go cross town to play for the stupid Mets is, for $5 million more I think there was something more personal, and that it's now coming out that maybe he had something with the Judge, and he didn't want to play with Judge anymore. He wanted to be the guy on the team and make the Mets his team, and it would never be his team if he, I don't know, but there's something there, don't you think, Rich? That's more personal than just the money.
I think all along he probably knew he was going to go to the Mets. He kept on saying, whoever pays me the most money. Well, Cohen came out early and said, get your best offer and come back to me, and I will give you more money than that. I think all along he was going to the Mets. I thought him and Judge got along extremely well. That's what I heard in the New York papers, but maybe not. Maybe you're right. And probably wants to be the man because everything's about Judge, But New York fans, the Yankee fans loved him. They loved him. But
how can you not love him? But the other thing is, and Bob, you can express it. I mean, he's going to the National League now. It's going to be much tougher. I mean, the Phillies and the Cardinals, not Cardinals,
no, not the Cardinals.
The Braves.
The Phillies and the Braves in their own division, and then the Dodgers and all these other teams. It's much tougher, don't you think, to win in the National League than it is the American League?
Without a doubt.
I don't know. I'm not so sure it's that. I mean, he's played in the National League before too. He spent that year and a half.
Here comes the Cleveland boy speaking.
Yeah, but hey, if Cleveland could win in the American League, it can't be that hard. You're right.
Well,
but the National League, I don't think it's that. It'll be his team, and he's got he's got the perfect partner with the Mets in Frankie Lindor. He's wonderful teammate, wonderful player, funny guy. He'll take the heat off of Soto when things go wrong. I think I think it's a perfect situation for him. Mets are good. I mean, they're going to be really, really good this year, I think, and especially when Verlander and Scherzer, aren't they both still there?
They're both going to come back. Yeah, right.
In wheelchairs and throw pitches from the mound lightweight.
Well, that's the thing. Do the Mets have enough pitching? Of course, does anybody have enough pitching for Soto? But there's been this discussion. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Rich. I think it was your boy Stephen A. Smith mentioned that Soto didn't want to play with Judge anymore because Judge choked in the postseason all the time, and he wanted a real partner, like a Lindor. Come on. I mean,
But the Yankees made the World Series. The Mets did not.
Exactly. Exactly. I think they're.
I know the Mets picked up Holmes, the guy from the Yankees, to be one of their starters. That tells you something right there. That should have scared them off. They're going to put Holmes in their starting rotation. There's no way. I was so happy about that too, that Holmes left the Yankees. So I'm very happy about that. I mean, the Yankees can end up, by the time this winter meetings are over and the trade deadline, all that, they can end up with 3 or 4 new players compared to having one. I've never understood why you trade for 5 for 1. One guy can't be better than 5 players. It just doesn't.
Well, in football and basketball, they always talk about a player's offense and his defense. Soto's defense is really worse than his offense is good.
Correct.
I mean, if of course,
he's not that bad a defensive player.
Oh, he's terrible. Come on, he's terrible.
He didn't make any of those errors in the 5th inning.
No,
because no balls came to him, Bob.
Yeah, he caught everything they hit to him in the 5th inning of that last game.
Yeah. And he's also not he should be he's such a great athlete. He should be a great base runner and everything else about him. But he's a one-tool guy, and I'll admit the one tool he hits like he's Ted Williams. But Rich is right. Putting all your on one guy, and his health is a concern, obviously, as everybody's concerned. But you're right, Rich. One guy. What if he starts missing games?
Well, there you go. What happens?
Yeah.
I mean, anybody can get hurt. We all know that, right? I mean,
we'll see. In the meantime, and even if he does get hurt, he will make $100 a minute until 2040.
Here you go.
Until 2040, he will make $100 a minute.
How many per game? How many per game or per bat?
You got it down per bat.
Add it. I mean, I'm just saying. Us sitting here, we have sat here for 30 minutes. He's made $3,000.
He's already made, yeah.
in the time we've been sitting here talking about it.
Bob, you're Mr. Inside Baseball. Are
Yeah.
the Mets going to keep the polar bear, whose name I love the polar bear's name, but
No, maybe the Yankees will get him.
I
He
don't
hit
want
behind
that.
Soto. No, you don't want it. No,
Yeah.
but he was terrific in the postseason. You know, he won the Mets a couple of games.
Yeah.
Sure.
The polar bear.
I mean, they
People-
the guys, they can afford anybody they want.
I
If they
love that
want
name.
to afford him, they can.
Well, he would hit behind Soto, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he would, be the guy.
I
yeah.
can still see him going. I think San Francisco wants to make a big splash. They signed Willie Adames, who might be the second best player in free agency, the shortstop. And if they got Alonso, that's a pretty good splash. And the Giants want so badly to compete with the Dodgers, and that might give them a chip to do that with. And somebody's going to get this Sasaki kid from Japan, the pitcher who's only 23.
Dodgers.
Dodgers, Yankees.
All the Japanese guys go to it's Tokyo West,
Tokyo.
Los Angeles.
Actually, it's Tokyo East, right?
Where? Yeah, East, I should say. Where's my Cardinals? Where's Arenado going to go? I can't believe the Cardinals want to get rid of him.
Yeah, they're going to ship him out. He's telling people he wants to play for a contender, but he says he'll even play first base. Isn't he one of the great third basemen of our generation?
He's won about 9 or 10 Gold Gloves.
Yeah,
Maybe San Francisco would get him. Who
Well, but they
knows?
already have a good third baseman that they've.
Well,
maybe they'll put him at
Arenado play
yeah.
first. Yeah. I don't know.
Who knows?
My Cardinals are in such a rebuilding stage. I don't get it. They're awful.
3 quick names. We'll see if anybody has a story or a memory of 2 guys who were voted into the Hall of Fame by the Veterans Committee. Richie Allen, I call him Richie. Dick Allen, he ended his career as, and Dave Parker, the Cobra. And then Rocky Colavito passed away yesterday. I got while you guys tell Dave Parker stories. I gotta get something here. Go ahead.
I don't know.
Rich-
Dave Parker, I
Rich
knew he was a great player, but I didn't follow him with the Pirates.
I used to call Richie Allen Richie too. Everybody called him Richie in those days. I don't know where he started to go to Dick. He wanted to make it more, conservative. I don't know. He's a wild man. He was a crazy guy. He used
Want to be a kid. Yeah. Here's
Bob,
what I wanted to get out.
Bob, didn't he used to rub stuff in the dirt at first base if he wanted to at the fans? Didn't he yell? Didn't he write something in the dirt?
He scratched out the word "boo" one year when he was in Philadelphia in the dirt at first base. I guess that's all they were doing to him. And then he also he wore on the back of his jersey one of the last years he played, rather than Allen, he put Wampum on, which is he was from Wampum, Pennsylvania, and he put the town's name on the back. This is Terry Pluto, a guy Curry, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wrote The Curse of Rocky Colavito, and I wanted to show that off, maybe sell a couple of copies for him. It's the loving look at a 30-year slump, which is about what happened in Cleveland when they traded Rocky Colavito. Think about this. They traded the home run champ for the batting champ. Harvey Keene had won the batting title in Detroit. They traded Rocky Colavito straight up just before the 1960 season started. Home run champ for batting champ. Would anybody ever do that now?
No.
Okay.
But I remember that. That was a huge news item right back then. I remember that.
Listen, did you guys? And Cleveland never won again until the 90s. So it was. That
Bob,
was really
is Rocky Colavito in the Hall of Fame?
He is
I don't
not.
think so.
And yet in his 11-year prime, the only guy who had better numbers than he did was Aaron, Mays, and Mantle. I mean, he was right there with those guys.
9-time All-Star. I mean, I think he played 14 years, 9-time All-Star. And how many times in the home run? He had over 350 home runs.
Yeah.
He
But
achieved
his career was too short.
You think?
Oh,
Yeah,
is that what it is?
Other than that 10-year run, he didn't do much. And he needed one more big year, maybe 2 more big years.
Isn't 10 years enough of greatness? Isn't that enough to make the Hall of Fame? I don't know.
I would think. I mean,
I don't know. Rich had 5 years of greatness at Hilton Head Prep, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So
and he's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Took you 35, right, Curry?
Speaking of changing sports for a minute, well,
Yes.
when I was going, did you guys talk about the great Luke Carnesecca who passed a couple weeks ago?
We're saying we
Rich told a quick story. Go ahead, though. I want to.
Yeah, Rich, I'm sure had stories.
No, I just love Luke Carnesecca. Growing up as a kid, St. John's was my team.
Yeah.
You know, at that back then, and Carnesecca was one of my favorite coaches. I talked about Curry must have some stories for us on Luke Carnesecca.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Yes.
Good Louis story.
He was such a nice man. He was about the nicest man. I can't think of anybody in sports that I ever met that was nicer than this guy, that was beloved by everybody. I mean, nobody would ever have a bad word about Luke Carnesecca. I did a story on him when I was a young guy at the magazine. I think it was one of the first national stories. It was about Lou, not just about his team, but they were having a great season. It was mid-season, and they had only lost once. They'd beaten North Carolina and Davidson, who were ranked in the top 5 both at the time. And Lou had Carmen Calzanetti.
Yeah.
You remember him, Rich, who became a good friend of mine. And they had 4 black guys playing around Carmen Calzanetti. And in those days, in fact, I went over the story I wrote, and we used the word in those days, Sports Illustrated. This was so far back that we used the word Negro back then to talk about play. Oh yeah, it was amazing. I didn't realize it was that long ago. But Lou Carnesecca, Calzanetti had it. Carnesecca on the sidelines was such a maniac. He was a runner and a shouter and a screamer more than any of these guys. Now pick any guy you want now. He was above that. He was, he was the first. And he would get up. I remember one game he got up. He was so small that and there was a play at the baseline far away, and his whole team got up. And Lou couldn't get by his team to run down. He got on the chairs, and he ran down. He somehow ran down on top of the chairs so he could get a look at the play, so he could go after the refs. He was incredible. And Calzanetti once told me one time that he was supposed to be getting signals from Carnesecca on the sidelines, and he'd look over half the time. He'd look over, and he couldn't find Carnesecca because Carnesecca was running up and down the sidelines and jumping and falling down. He was always falling down. I know he hurt himself. I remember he hurt himself in a game against Virginia. Carnesecca almost broke his ankle because he was running around, and he fell. He tripped himself. So he was a great character.
Yeah. Coach, you ever fall down coaching?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No?
I don't think I've ever fallen down.
Chasing after a ref.
I wasn't running up and down the sidelines.
Rich, you didn't run up and down.
No, I knelt. I sat or knelt. I didn't get up and run around. I have a great story about sidelines. A friend of mine, Coach O'Gorman, back in the day, you remember when they said you couldn't get up off the bench as a high school coach, you had to be sitting down. There was a rule there. They didn't want coaches going up and down. So he got himself a chair on wheels and strapped himself in, and he wheeled himself up and down the sidelines.
That's a great one.
It was perfect.
Carnesecca would have done something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
There you go.
Remember when Pitino was hired at St. John's, year and a half ago, something. It was the first time a lot of people had seen Carnesecca in public, and he was so old. Was he 94, 95 when he died?
He was 99. He's supposed to be
99. He was. Oh, that's right. He was a week or so from 100. That's right. That's right. But he came out and he did press conferences when Pitino was hired. He did press for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
At 98. Yeah, just a great man.
Yeah, those guys who loves the spotlight. All right, we got a couple of things to clean up when we come back, including I got a college hoop note you guys need to work with, and then the Heisman Trophy finalists have been picked. We got to weigh in on that too when we throw somebody under the bus. Brought to you by Hudson's on the Docks. Welcome back to Under the Bus. Bob Stevens along with Curry Kirkpatrick and Rich Basirico. I got this college basketball nugget for you. You guys work at it from here. Tennessee is number one in men's basketball right now. The top 7, or actually the top 12, in the last 20 years, the national champ has come from the top 12 this week. Not any other week. This week, the top 12, the national champ every year. And in fact, every year except one, 2016, when Villanova ended up winning it, the national champ has come from the top 7 this week.
Wow.
Who came up with that note? I mean, who would have looked that baby up?
Some they got people who waste their time doing that. So the top 7 are Tennessee, Auburn, Iowa State, Duke, Kentucky, Marquette, and Alabama. So who wins?
Curry, you said you saw Iowa State. You were impressed with them?
I did. Well, of course, they were top 5 preseason. I mean, they were expected, they're really, really good. They had a great game with Auburn in the first round of the Maui Classic. I mean, they play, now they're 2-4 in the country. But and it was a great game, and Auburn won and advanced, and then Iowa State went into the losers bracket in Hawaii. But, the big story this early season is the SEC. I mean, forget the fact that they went 14-2 against the ACC in that challenge. I mean, ACC should not do any more challenges, not challenge the Big Ten, the Big East.
Challenge the Ivy League.
Forget the challenge, yeah. I mean, and I've seen all of them on TV. Florida even is number 9, I think number 9. SEC has 5 of the top 10. I mean, 5 of the top 10 are in the SEC. And Tennessee beat Miami last night in the Garden. That was not a contest for them, and they're really good. They have this guard Zakiya Ziegler, who's from New York, right, Rich? And I think he's been there about 9 years. It seems like
long time, yeah.
And they lost Dalton Knecht, their big scorer. Tennessee did, but they bring in this guy Chaz Lanier, who scores 20 every game. He was at North Florida for 4 years, the Ospreys. He played at North Florida. The guy goes in the portal, and he looks like an All-American now for Tennessee. It's amazing the guys that you can get in this portal. On the other hand, Hubert Davis has no chance going in the portal and doesn't get anybody. So we're in trouble. We've been cold-cocked by both Auburn and Alabama. And now we get Florida next week in Charlotte, and beware what we wish for, getting another SEC team.
Well,
what do you think, Rich? What do you think of those teams in the conference?
the one that Bob just mentioned. I mean, Auburn. I mean, I'm not a big Bruce Pearl fan, but Auburn is very, very good.
Yeah, who is?
I think somewhere down along the line, he'll screw him up somehow, some way. I do. I don't think it.
Well, like Rick Barnes in Tennessee. I'm not a Rick Barnes fan.
No, I agree with you, Bob. His teams never advance far, do they? Think about it. He was at Texas. I mean, he's been at some good programs. For some reason, they get in the NCAA playoffs. I mean, they do win, but they don't really get to the Final Four. Has he ever been? I don't think he's ever been in the Final Four.
No, he got Texas Final Four one year with that guard. He had that great little guard at Texas. He had and got them. And you're right. Everybody mocks Pearl. Pearl also in postseason has never done anything.
Right.
But boy, does Auburn look like an NCAA. They look like a Final Four team to me. They got this guy Janae Broome, the center. He might be the best player in the country. Yeah. Certainly going to be in the conversation. I mean, did you guys talk while I was gone about Hurley's dung show that he's put on after Maui about the losing? They lost 3 times.
Right.
Well, you probably talked
as I remember, Curry, what we said was we can't wait to hear what Curry's got to say about this. So the floor is yours, partner.
The wonderful thing is after he keeps talking about the 3 losses there. Why doesn't he just shut up? A week after that, he went ahead and he said, remember what he said? He said he's never going to play in what he called MET tournaments, multi-MTE events, multi-team events. what the hell is he talking about? Did he make that up? I mean, that means he's never going to play in Hawaii or Bahamas again if they've got 3 days against 3 teams. I mean, you think if he won the tournament, he'd said that?
No. And he's up
I mean,
against the same thing, playing 3 days in a row. All the other teams are too. He's not the only guy playing 3 games in a row. He's not the only guy that has to travel. I mean, they're all and then he blames everything on the officials. And
of course.
Play he bitched about at the end of the game, the guy fouled him. He was over his back. It was a foul.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what
Well, if he's not going to play multiple team events, of course, that means he's not going to play in the Big East tournament, and he's not going to play in the NCAA. So bye-bye Danny Hurley. I mean,
what the NIT? Yeah, he's not even in the NIT. Get him out.
Yeah, it was
Heisman Trophy, Final Four. Pick one of these guys: Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward.
The 2 quarterbacks are out.
All right,
they're out, and I'm surprised.
Which is really interesting. Because the quarterback wins every year.
Usually
don't
wins,
you agree? I think Hunter wins it. I really do.
Well, the kid at Boise State, Jaunty, who's going to break Barry Sanders' record for yards gained, which is an unbelievable record. In any other year, he'd probably be the winner. But Travis Hunter's going to win because he's a two-way player.
Yeah,
and I think he's going to get the most votes. As I said, Jaunty would win in any other year. Except, Hunter is he's like a, people have said he's on the way to, if he plays just one position, defense in the NFL, he's going to be like a Hall of Famer. I don't know. I haven't seen him that much. Yeah. I know that Deion Sanders, stopped yapping so much about himself just in time to start pulling for this guy for the Heisman Trophy. That's probably why he's going to win it.
Hey, Rich, your Giants right now have the number 2 pick. You taking one of those 4?
I wouldn't take either one of the quarterbacks. I would take Hunter for sure. But I would not take the quarterbacks. No, I would not.
All right. Good stuff, guys. We still got plenty on the table to talk about next week already. And who knows what's going to happen in this next week. Curry, thanks so much for saving us some time off of your beach time, to take a little time off the beach to join us. And we got you back home next week?
Well, I'm coming home next week. The problem is I'm coming home on a Wednesday, so I don't know if I'll make this again. Might have to be AWOL again. I can't do it on the airplane.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, who knows? We'll figure out a way. Curry's going to be back next week. We'll move the time if we need to. For Rich Basirico and Curry Kirkpatrick, I'm Bob Stevens. Thanks so much for joining us for Under the Bus, brought to you by Hudson's on the Docks.
Thanks. Thank you.
Under the Bus is a production of the Loco Media Network and is filmed on the Hilton Head Island campus of the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. The executive producer is Justin Jarrett, with assistance from Trey Ramsey, Mahogany Hickman, and Adam Carroll.